your midterm coverage na topics. Okay, we have the general principles, force vectors, equilibrium of particles, force system resultants, equilibrium of rigid bodies, structural analysis, internal forces, and friction. So we will begin our discussion with the general principles. So mechanics, the definition of mechanics is that it is a branch of physical science that is concerned with the state of rest or motion. So it's either the body, a particular body is at rest or in motion, that is subjected to forces. Okay, so for the mechanics, we have three major branches of it. We have your statics, dynamics, and fluid mechanics. So for this course, gi-combine nato ang kaning duha. Statics, o makita ninyo ang scroll, no? Or what should I do for a while, ha? Okay, never mind. So the statics deals with the equilibrium of bodies at rest in siya or nag-move at a constant velocity. So there's no acceleration. While dynamics is concerned with the accelerated motion of bodies, pasabot na acceleration. F is equals to ma. While statics, basically, the body is at rest or with a constant velocity. Fundamental concepts. Okay, for the basic quantities, are you familiar with these quantities class? We have the length, the time, mass, and force. For length, we have unsa man mga basic units for length. Jane, what are the basic units for length that you are familiar with? Jane.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Meter, centimeter, inch, foot.
Yes, for the US
Yard.
customary units, pwede na siya. Then you have your miles, you have your inches, di ba? You have your feet. For the US customary, you have your meters, millimeter, centimeter, kilometers. How about time? Time, the basic unit ani niya is that ang unsa man seconds, minutes, hours, because your velocity is unsa man unsa may kwan sa velocity. Velocity is distance per covered say concerned. Okay. So for the velocity, you have your kilometer per meter, kilometer per second, or meter per second, di ba? Sa time is mo ng seconds. It is conceived as a succession of events. Mass is a measure of quantity or of matter that is used to compare the action of one body with that of another. So question, Charles, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is more heavy, 1 kilogram of stone or 1 kilogram of cotton?
Same lang siya, ma'am.
Same rano kay 1 kilogram
Oh.
rano. So, basically, that's the concept of mass. Kung ang measure sa quantity nga naa kung ahaang kanang mas bugat or asa ang kanang iyang kuan. So, basically, the same lang because the quantity is 1 kilogram. Diba? So, lahi na po ng volume. Lahi po ng story ang volume. Dili na siya basic quantity nga part sa ato ang statics. Right? So, the force. Force is equals to, sa man ang force? Force is considered as a push or pull. exerted by one body on another. In any case, a force is completely characterized by its magnitude, direction, and point of application. Okay, the force is a vector quantity because it has direction. It has magnitude. For example, the basic unit for force, sa may basic unit sa force. How about Kurt Collins Mordino? What is an example basic unit of force? Kurt? Examples of force. Newton, 'di ba? May isa sa mga basic unit. Or you have your kilonewton, or you have your meganewton for the US customary units. But for kanang sa English, you have your slug kilogram or slug. Basically is it's a mass nga kuan. So force pwede po ang formula sa force is F is equals to ma, or mass multiplied by the acceleration. Or if you take for example the formula of stress is equals to force over area. So kung nakay force, then force is equals to stress multiplied by the area. So mao nang the more nga magkadaghang problema, which ang problema equate siya sa stress, the more nga dapat ka mukaon. Right? Sakto ba? Did you get my logic? Class? Or wala? Sige, assignment niyo na. Unsa na siya pasabutan na. Okay, next is the basic concepts lang gihapon ta ha. Particle. Particle basically one dot or one part of a big mass. Particle as a mass, but a size that can be neglected. So pwede siya dot, pwede siya og kanang negligible lang iyahang size, but it has a mass. Second, rigid body can be considered as a combination of large numbers of particles. So a group of particle can be called a rigid body. So pwede siya, a rigid body is kanang makita ani mo madako, visible your naked eye, and you cannot neglect the size of the rigid body. Kay dako naman ni siya. Concentrated force. Concentrated force represents the effect of loading which is assumed to act at one point of the body. The moment that we will solve problems, you will be acquainted with these terms here. So the purpose of this slide is just to be familiarized with the terms nga ato ang ma-encounter later on. Okay? So don't be afraid or kanang matingala mo nga nung wala ko naghatag og mga example or picture ani kay, because these terms here will be used frequently sa tuang discussion during our problem solving. Okay, this is what I'm talking about earlier. F is equals to ma. Sikat si Newton because of this formula, okay? So there are 3 Newton's law of motion. The first law is that a particle originally at rest is moving in a straight line with constant velocity, tends to remain in this state provided that the particle is not subjected to an unbalanced force. For example, class, makita ninyo ang kaning scroll na if this particle, assuming lang ha, and neglect the other, and neglect nito ni siya, kaning uban, kaning neglect ni siya. If this group of particles, or if this particle, assume as 1, makita ninyo class, ang kanang scroll, dili. Can you see it? Hey class?
Kita, ma'am.
Makita ang scroll na, okay. So, ato lang ang illustrate na itong sinahitabo sa kanang first law, ha. If this if this particle originally at rest and nag-start siya move in a straight line with constant velocity, 5 meters per second from point, dinhi nga point, padulong dinhi nga point. So, magpadayon daw ko na siya nga mag-move at a constant velocity provided that walay other forces nga muak upon it. Walay outside force or unbalanced force nga muak on it. Okay? So, pasabot, i-neglect ni mo ning 2, mag-concentrate ka diri sa 1, then these balls here will continue moving straight at a velocity of 5 meters per second kung walay outside force, walay outside force nga mo disturbo sa iya, ha. Okay? That is the first law of motion. The second law of motion is that a particle acted upon by an unbalanced force F experience an acceleration A, and that has the same direction as the force and a magnitude that is directly proportional to the force. I repeat, the second law of motion, if kanida ko nung particle is acted upon by this unbalanced force F, then the acceleration A that has the same direction of the force F and a magnitude that is directly proportional to force. So, pasabot, kung ma-disturb na ni siya, by aning force din sa number 2, na siya acceleration mahitabo. Di ba before is constant ang velocity, pasabot walay acceleration. But with the introduction of unbalanced force dere, na change in velocity. If there is a change in velocity, then therefore, napoy acceleration. Acceleration can be negative or positive. Positive acceleration, pasabot the same direction with the force. Pasabot kung nag-apply kang force padulong din of course, your acceleration is padulong po dito and kung positive siya. But kung negative ang acceleration, pasabot, opposite ang direction sa nag-decrease ang imuhang velocity. Okay? Kung dili pareho ang velocity, of course, dili pareho kay na may acted upon by this force man. But kung negative acceleration, pasabot opposite ang direction niya sa force. If the force is padulong din and your acceleration is negative, pasabot dito ang direction sa acceleration. Nag-decelerate siya. Deceleration ang nahitabo, okay? But deceleration is also an acceleration. There is a change in velocity. The third law of motion, the mutual forces of action and the reaction between two particles are equal, opposite, and collinear. So action is equals to reaction. Third law of particle. Third law of Newton's motion. Action is equals to reaction. If there is an action, there is an opposite but equal reaction. So, kung mo nilang giingon nga kung naay nahitabuan ni dere between this particle, kanyo makita ba? Between this kanang first nga ball and second nga ball sa one, sa body 1, na siya reaction, na action and reaction. So, between them, there exists the third law of motion. Kaya kung sa iyang gi-push din mo po na gi-push niya din di ba? Class? So, mo siya ang third law of motion. The next is this sample of units, measurements nga atong discussed earlier for the SI and the US customary. Okay, ang ako gi-mention ganina ka US customary ang meter na sayop ko, naglibog ko class, sorry. SI units is meter, second, kilograms, and newton. So, as I said, slugs is for mass for the US customary. Slugs. So, do not be confused if your problems will consist of US customary or SI. So, the one way of attacking your problem is dapat make sure that all the givens have the same system of units. Pasabot, if your length is in meter, then you have to convert everything into meter. Okay? So if you have mass nga in slugs, so you have to utilize the US customary. Pasabot, if the mass is slugs, then you have to convert the length from meter to foot. Or asa mo mas comfortable and convenient. Mas comfortable mo sa SI or sa US customary. So it's really up to you. But the problems will be kung say given sa problem, basically mao na siya ang answer. Okay? Not unless gipangayo sa problem kung what is the kanang equivalent US customary values for these items, lahi po na siya. Kung ipa-convert mo or dili. For example, so conversion of 1 unit into another. So for this one, we have to convert from SI to US customary. So convert 2 km per hour to meter per second and convert it to feet per second. Okay? So 2 km per hour is example ha. So nakay 2, then i-over ni mo og per hour, then in 1 kilometer, how many meters? You have 1,000 meters per kilometer. So you have to know this conversion factor. And I guess kabalo man taan ni tanan, di ba? Kay high school, elementary pa lang gitudluan naman taan in 1 kilometer na ay 1,000 meters. And of course, i-convert po dato ning hour. In 1 hour, how many seconds? So since nasa ubos ang hour, then you have to put 1 hour here over 3,600 seconds. So simplify the equation and you get 2 km per hour is equal to 0.556 meter per second. So you have this one, then you have to convert this to the US customary. 0.55 meter per second. How many meters in 1 foot? So you have to know this conversion. And kung wala ka kabalo, isa na sa mga purpose sa imong calculator, because in your calculator you have your conversion there. You can use it and be familiarized with it. So from SI, you now have US customary units of feet per second. So 2 km per hour is equal to 1.82 feet per second. Inana na siya ka-simple, mag-convert og from one unit into another. So ang ato gina-convert dito is ang velocity. Questions? Wala? Okay, let's proceed. Assignment naman day ni. Simple lang makaning assignment gipanghatag nila sir oy. Anyway, since this is the assignment, you have to answer this and submit your answer sa LMS. Okay? You have to convert 2 kilometers to how many meters? Then hours to seconds, grams to kilograms, and then pounds to grams. You see. Okay. That's it. But basically, your problem set will not be as easy as this, okay? These are more spoon feeding ra kayo. But you have to try and answer this, nevertheless, because it's part of your requirement. Any questions? Let's move to the force and vector. If you have no question, if you have walay pangutana? Lain mo kayo mag-yoyo ko sa class, oy. Lain siya ding interaction, basta face-to-face. Okay, let's proceed to the next slide. And in your LMS. It's already posted there, section where you can submit your first assignment.